We are the world's first Jewish and Chicano radio show. Welcome back to Phoenix Talkback. It's great to be here, and I have a substitute Mexican-American Chicano person here with me today. He's sitting right here beside me. His name is Santiago James Chavez. So,
hello.
Santiago, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
All right. And also coming up in the studio will be Martin Quesada. He is an Arizona representative currently in the current Arizona legislature. So we'll be taking your calls probably another 15, 20 minutes. But here, you want to write this number down? It's 602-277-5369. And if you're out of the 602 area code, please write this number down, 1-866-536-1100. And you'll be able to call in and ask Arizona Representative Martin Quesada a couple of questions. But in the meantime, as I say, Bobby Hernandez is not here today, but Santiago James Chavez is here. So welcome to the show. Santiago, tell us just a little bit about yourself.
Well, most people know me as James. Part of the thing that happened with a lot of people my age was they changed our name when we were in grade school. I changed my name back to Santiago, what it used to be, what it should have been.
This is the world's first Jewish Chicano radio show, so I would hope that you would use Santiago, and I hope we can refer to you as
that's my real name.
That's your real name?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Well, folks, this is Phoenix Talkback, the world's first Jewish Chicano radio show, and I invite you to stay tuned for Martin Quesada. He's an Arizona representative in the current Arizona legislature. But in the meantime, here's the news. The 2013 yearly Boston Marathon became a tragedy as two explosions at the finish line killed 3 people, including 8-year-old Martin Richard, right in front of his father, and over 176 were wounded. 2 days later, the FBI caught a break after interviewing Jeff Bauman in the hospital. Bauman was himself a victim of the blast, losing both legs below the knee. He was transported in a wheelchair, and you've seen the picture. It became viral. The man in the wheelchair, and you could see that both of his legs were amputated from the knees down. Amputated and doped up on painkillers. He identified the suspects in pictures, and then the FBI held a press conference asking for help from everyone. Social media then exploded with these pictures, making this phenomenon known as the largest ever crowdsourcing, enlisting the aid and the help of everyone in the social media blogosphere to help solve the crime. The 2 suspects, the Tsarnaev brothers, tried to escape because they could see that their pictures were all over the internet. The older brother, Tamerlan Tsarnaev, was pronounced dead at the hospital, run over by his younger brother, Dokar, who fled. After the entire area was locked down, a man came out of his house to find the fugitive suspect hiding in his boat underneath a tarp. And when the police arrested him, he was not immediately read his Miranda rights. 54 votes was not enough to allow approval of the Manchin-Toomey background check amendment in the Senate, despite overwhelming support for background checks. This dealt a serious blow to the level of confidence many Americans felt about the process of government, keenly feeling a rule by minority instead of the rule by majority. Come on, isn't that how America is, folks? Shouldn't it be rule by majority? Although Democratic Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid had to vote no in order to bring the vote up again, President Obama held a press conference about the obvious ineffectiveness in our government.
Incredible thing was that there was a big piece of news that got blown off the front pages, and that was an explosion at the fertilizer plant in West Texas that killed at least 15 people. The explosion was as strong as an earthquake, measuring 2.1 on the Richter scale, and felt as far away as 50 miles. The plant was storing almost 1,400 times the amount of ammonium nitrate allowable without mandatory safety checks. Ammonium nitrate is used in the manufacture of bombs. The company, West Fertilizer, had previously told Texas regulators that any accident at the facility would not be large enough to cause an explosion. Ultimately, the Department of Homeland Security is responsible, as they didn't even know the plant existed until the explosion.
FBI special agents arrested Paul Kevin Curtis, the individual believed to be responsible for the mailings of the 3 ricin letters sent through the U.S. Postal Service addressed to President Obama, Mississippi Senator Roger Wicker, and the Mississippi judge Sadie Holland, who sentenced Curtis to 6 months in jail in an assault case a decade ago. Curtis has been employed as an Elvis impersonator. The Yuma prosecutor's office is now in possession of 4 misdemeanor charges sent by the Yuma Police Department against State Senator Don Shooter, who heatedly confronted a teacher at a Yuma charter school and later claimed his medically disabled grandson was repeatedly humiliated and bullied by his teacher. And you know what, folks? That's the news. Well, Santiago, what do you think is the most important story out of all that news?
This is a tough one to pick because they were huge, but obviously the terror in Boston and the unprecedented lockdown of an entire city to find one suspect, and the way they utilized the public and the pictures that they put out. The big drawback about that, I think, was that there were a lot of amateur detectives out there trying to identify people.
Well, not only that, but there were a lot of amateur news services out there, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So, no, we're talking about journalistic integrity, and then one of the first things that happened as soon as this hit, America wanted answers. And who was there to give them answers? But the wrong answer was John King. And what he said basically made things worse. And here's John King on CNN and how he reported it.
I was told that they have a breakthrough in identification of a suspect. I was told by one of these sources, who was a law enforcement official, that this was a dark-skinned male. I'm just saying this was relayed to me by a reputable law enforcement source, a source who had been briefed on the investigation. I should say that the suspect was a dark-skinned male, and that's information that comes from the police. I know there are people out there.
We can't say whether the person spoke with a foreign accent or an American accent or anything like that. That would be premature.
Right. And again, this source did use further language to characterize, and I'm just, as a reporter who's been through a lot of these, who knows that sometimes the information you get does not in the end turn out to be what happens in the end. I'm making a personal judgment, forgive me, but I think it's the right judgment, not to try to inflame tensions, and to just say the law enforcement source was very clear. And again, they've enhanced this video. They have a close-up look at this individual they have on video. They say dropping a package, making a placement that they believe to be the explosive device, and they say it is a dark-skinned male. I'm going to stop there and not go further.
I don't want to say anything, but as you said, he doesn't want to inflame sentiment, but he was a dark-skinned male. That makes me a suspect.
I've got 3 words for John King. I've got 3 words for CNN. Less is more. Of course, how can you tell a guy like John King what's going on? We haven't seen John King on CNN since that time. I mean, this was irresponsible for him to say, oh, I've heard from a reputable law enforcement person that it was a dark-skinned person. Now, the right wing took that and ran with it. What do they think when they think dark-skinned person?
Well, the right wing is still running with it. They're trying to tie the bombers with the Muslim community and then the Muslim community with the terrorist community. They keep drawing that line, and there's absolutely no facts out there yet to support any of the right-wing assumptions, right-wing talk and right-wing TV.
Well, you mentioned it a moment ago. You said that would most likely make you a suspect.
I got dark skin and dark hair and dark features, and
you don't look white, and so therefore, to the right wing, anyone who does not look white is therefore suspect. Because, after all, what does that mean, a dark-skinned person? I'm telling you, John King made things worse. And Louis Gohmert of Texas made things worse. And Chuck Grassley has made things worse in the immigration hearing on Friday. And who else made things worse? Steve King? And also, what's his name? The other King. He made things worse.
The guy out of New York. Peter King, yes.
Peter King, right. At any rate, we've got a lot more to hear on this particular subject. And so I'd like you to stay tuned to Phoenix Talk Back, where it'll be me, Lou, and Santiago here for you. Hey, thanks for sticking with us here on Phoenix Talkback. I'm here with my guest co-host, Santiago James Chavez.
Hello out there.
Right. Before we get back into our subjects here, I have an announcement. There's an episode of Locked Up Abroad called Raving Arizona. If you are interested in taking a look at Joe's jails, we're talking about Maricopa County Sheriff Joe Arpaio. 10 million people are expected to watch this show on the National Geographic Channel. So if you don't have the National Geographic Channel, please find it. The name of the episode is Raving Arizona, and it's the story of Sean Atwood, who left England to become a successful stockbroker in Phoenix. And then he began dealing drugs, and he got on the wrong side of some local organized crime. And he tried to revert back to being a stockbroker, but too little too late. The police came knocking at his door, and this is his story of being locked up in Joe's jail. So that's this Wednesday on the National Geographic Channel. That's right. Okay. So, before the break, we were talking about how the right wing's reaction, the Boston bombing, and I mentioned Louis Gohmert, and that got a reaction out of you, Santiago.
One of the things I think that he's pushed out there is that Al-Qaeda has set up camp in Mexico, and that they're teaching them how to act Mexican. So they come across the border saying, "Orale," say, "What's happening?" "Orale," and then it's strutting across the border. Oh, that is so ridiculous. We would have drones over there striking Al-Qaeda camps in half a second. And the real problem, though, Lou, is that the right-wing people believe these kinds of lies.
They've got no evidence here either. They have no evidence.
Absolutely
it's just
none.
Basically a supposition of what's happening, and it's not true. Folks, in case you didn't hear it, Louis Gohmert thinks that there are terror babies being brought over into the United States through Mexico. And here's the exchange that Louis Gohmert had with Anderson Cooper on CNN on this very subject. Listen to how idiotic this guy sounds, with no evidence, no proof, nothing except fear, fear, fear.
Sir, again, I'm agreeing with you that there are tourists. Sir, you can continue to yell all you want. Again, you're just showing yourself not to have actually any evidence. What I'm saying is, yes, those newspaper articles, clearly, there are many tourists who come here to have babies so they can have U.S. citizenship. Do you have any evidence of terror babies?
Who have sent pregnant women over here to have babies. And
the FBI says this is just not happening.
Send them over there.
You're just spreading scare stories. This is completely about politics.
It is happening. It is happening.
Where? Give me some evidence. Tell me one person, one terror baby that's been born. Can you tell me?
The explosions will not happen for 10, 15, 20 years, and then you will be one of those blips. I'm not comparable to Winston Churchill, but the detractors like you are comparable to his detractors.
Right. Okay.
He tried to tell people these things were going on.
Right.
Anderson, do you really believe that the ones who want to destroy the United States are more stupid than these entrepreneurs in China, than these people in Mexico coming across?
Well, sir, one of the things that the former FBI...
Do you think there's that stupid?
Are you willing to have a conversation, or do you want to just yell? One of the former FBI agents pointed out on this program last night that terrorist groups have no problem recruiting U.S. citizens, have no problems sending people over here that they don't need to prepare 20 years from now.
There was no credible report of such a plan. Look at the gaping hole in our security.
Sir, I don't think there's anything fun about a congressman going onto the House floor and spreading scare stories. I don't think there's anything fun about that.
Look
Congressman,
at the story.
Appreciate your time.
Hole. Help us fill the hole.
Again, the congressman could present any evidence anytime.
Why do you put up with that clown?
Yeah, why do we put up with these clowns?
They keep electing them.
Yeah, that's right. So who are the clowns? The constituency who gets bowled over and convinced that yes, they're here, good for America. There's a possibility that they're doing great damage to America because it's we can't continue to live on fear, and we've lived in this kind of fear since 9/11, and the right wing has exploited it. We're talking disaster capitalism, and now it's splitting us apart. And in the meantime, here's what I've been saying for the last few years: is that we're not in competition with each other, or we shouldn't be. We're actually in competition with Europe. We're in competition with China, and so that's where it's going to be. Now, you mentioned Al-Qaeda, didn't you? You mentioned that, that the right wing thinks that Al-Qaeda wants to establish camps.
The GOP is saying that they've already established camps there, and they're sending people across the border, and they're teaching them, first of all, how to be terrorists, make bombs, the art of espionage and subterfuge, and they're actually teaching them how to act like Chicanos or Mexicans. This is Louis Gohmert speaking.
Right. I know it's not you speaking, it's not me speaking, but I do have the voice of an al-Qaeda representative. And given that the background check thing failed in the Senate this last week due to the strength of minority rule, I caught this clip. This is al-Qaeda 2 years ago. 2 years ago, suggesting that this is the place, America, where terrorists should buy guns because the gun laws are so lax. And here's something that the right wing never thought about.
You know who's watching this whole gun debate play out in America? Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda already thinks America's gun control system is weak. An American Al-Qaeda spokesman says it is so easy to get guns in America that wannabe terrorists should take advantage of it.
Let's take America as an example. America is absolutely awash with easily obtainable firearms. You can go down to a gun show at the local convention center and come away with a fully automatic assault rifle without a background check and most likely without having to show an identification card. So what are you waiting for?
That is Al-Qaeda video from 2011, and the man in the video urged sympathizers living in the U.S. to carry out terrorist acts similar to what we saw in Mumbai in 2008.
So like I said, if the right wing doesn't wake up and do what approximately 85-90% of the American people want and establish background checks and some restrictions, that means anybody will be able to get guns, even the terrorists.
Just go to a gun show. Half the time, depending on the state especially, you don't have to show any kind of ID. You could just walk in, buy a gun, semi-automatic, convert it, and you have yourself an automatic weapon. The same thing can happen with private sales. On the internet, Craigslist, the newspaper. Just buy the gun from a private individual, and that was one of the things that they wanted to legislate, the background checks for these types of sales. And, of course, minority rule failed, as you mentioned.
You know, coming up on our show will be Martin Casada. He's an Arizona representative in the current session of the Arizona legislature. And we're going to ask him some questions about how democracy works, because he is right there in the thick of lawmaking and legislating. Yep, that Martin, he's just legislating and then lawmaking, and can't wait to talk to him. The extra of blowback of the right wing exploiting this bombing in Boston has included, for example, Steve King out of Iowa, who thinks that we got to be cautious about getting into the immigration debate. I think the right wing is going to use this to delay consideration of the Gang of Eights immigration plan. And you know what? They're independent, because Louis Gohmert is trying to connect it with into Mexico, and that's not valid. That's not valid at all. You know, we'll return to the show with Martin Casada to answer these and more questions. The number here is 602-277-5369. Please, let's hear from you.
Call.
Welcome back to Phoenix Talkback, the world's first Jewish and Chicano radio show. Before we bring on our guest, I have an announcement about the publishing of a book. The book is called The Four Horsemen. It's written by John Rowan. Given the events this last week in Boston, this is a very salient book. Let me read for you what it's all about. That after Vietnam, 4 Green Berets returned home to New York City and joined the police department as horsemen on horses in its mounted patrol unit. After attacks by domestic terrorists, their skills from Vietnam become an asset, creating the New York Police Department's Joint Terrorist Task Force. Sound familiar? But this story heats up as they must decide, do they work within the restrictions of the law, or do they step outside the law to take down this terrorist group? This book can be found online at smashwords.com, also at Barnes & Noble and Amazon Books. It's an ebook. It's only $3.99. Please look for The Four Horsemen. And now, I'd like to bring on our special guest. He's Martin Quesada. He is a representative in the Arizona House of Representatives. Martin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lou. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you.
Welcome, Martin.
Yes. As you know, this is the world's first Jewish Chicano radio show. So my first question to you is, do you consider yourself a Chicano?
Yeah, Lou, absolutely. I would definitely say that I've called myself a Chicano for many, many years now.
Right. But there's some people who don't accept that term, and they reject it, or they don't understand it.
Well, Lou, I think there's a lot of people who don't completely understand why individuals like myself call themselves Chicanos. But yeah, there are some that still don't completely understand it and that do reject it. But I think I know I'm a proud Chicano. I know many of the people I associate with consider ourselves proud Chicanos, and we're proud of our history and our culture and what we're doing with this.
I'd like to ask you this. This is just your opinion, just your view. How would you answer this question? Do you think that in Arizona there's anybody who speaks on behalf of the Mexican-American community? Is there anybody that you think does?
Well, Lou, that's a great question. And I think in our community we have to first recognize that we have such a broad and such a diverse community that Latinos, Chicanos aren't going to have one individual who they turn to be our spokesperson. We're going to have many. And I think that we are fortunate that we do have many who, from different perspectives, from different backgrounds, do speak for us on different levels. And I can go through and mention a few of those for you. At the legislature, one of the ones that comes to mind is our Senator Steve Gallardo, who a lot of people turn to on Latino issues. We've got other members in the legislature, like Representative Sally Ann Gonzalez from Tucson, who's a strong advocate for Latino issues. And then other elected officials at different levels. At the county, I know Supervisor Mary Rose Wilcox has taken a strong role on Latino issues. And then we've got community activists, people out in their community talking to neighborhoods, talking to voters, registering voters. People like Petra Falcon with Promise Arizona. Raquel Terán even has taken a strong role. In education, there are people who have strong policy backgrounds and speak out about the way that our education policy affects Latino children. There are strong people like Mr. David Garcia, who's one of the strongest policy education people out there, and who knows a lot about the way our state laws affect Chicanos.
You can call and ask Martin Quesada, Arizona Representative Martin Quesada, a question at 602-277-5369 or at 1-866-536-1100. Again, locally, that's 602-277-5369. So thank you for that answer. You're a newly elected representative in the House. You're an attorney. What made you decide to get into politics?
Lou, that's an interesting question as well. I think what happened with me is I saw a window of opportunity, and I saw an opportunity to get involved at a time when I thought my community needed help, and I thought that I had an opportunity to enter into this arena and make a difference. And I know that those windows are few and far between. I saw it and I jumped at it. What I saw going through my education and through my professional experience was that our community needs a lot of help, and there's not a lot of people who are providing that help. And that's why I wanted to get involved.
And you're interested in education. I remember speaking with you last year. You were very interested in education, and you believe in doing the right thing, and you're almost, I don't want to say untouchable, but do you still feel as though doing the right thing is the most important thing?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. If you're not doing the right thing, if I've seen many politicians who get into office and become persuaded by outside interests, by outside lobbyists, by money, and when that happens, you need to get out. And so,
speaking of which, I understand that ALEC has been showing up lately in the legislature. and that you're keenly aware of this. What would you like to tell us about that?
Well, not just lately, Lou. ALEC has been around at the legislature for many, many years, and their influence at the legislature is heavy. It is a strong influence, and the community really needs to be more aware about what organizations like ALEC are doing in legislatures, not only here in Arizona, but throughout the country. So it's a very dangerous influence, and it's caused a lot of harm. A lot of the bills that have been passed in Arizona are ALEC bills.
Right.
What type, Martin? What type of legislation has ALEC helped foster through the system here in Arizona and around the country?
At least lately.
At least lately, yes.
Well, ALEC's influence at the legislature covers a broad range of topics. So every subject area at these ALEC conferences, they have lobbyists who come in and they draft legislation for attendees at these conferences. At these conferences where those legislators are wined and dined, they are treated like royalty. And then at the end of the day, they're provided a sample legislation where they say, here, we would love it if you ran this bill in your state legislature. And that's exactly what happens. Those many examples of legislation are exact copies of what ALEC has on their website as model legislation.
Have you ever been invited to one of these conferences?
I have not been invited to one of these conferences, but even if I had, I could attend because these are open to all legislators. But it's those that choose to go.
Right.
And I have chosen not to go. I will never attend one of these conferences.
I'd like to ask you something. You're Chicano, you're Mexican American. There's a segment of the Mexican American population all across the United States that doesn't quite trust President Obama because of the record number of deportations. Okay, so I'd like you to address that. 1 million deportations so far. So what would you say to those people who are angry at Obama for deporting all these people?
Well, again, that's the politics of being in office. There are efforts that need to be made on both sides of this immigration issue. Those numbers of deportations are big, and people are upset about that for a good reason. And a lot of people aren't aware of that. So there's some valid concern there for the number of deportations that have been happening lately. The way to address that is to ask, why are those deportations happening? Are those the right people that are being deported? And are these policies serving our country well? And that's what we need to figure out.
Are these policies serving our country well?
Well, right now, our immigration policy is broken. So the answer is no. Our immigration policy is simply not working. And for us to continue to feed it, for us to continue to live under this policy is hurting our nation as a whole. I do believe that.
Okay. Well, you're in the thick of things. And you heard the first part of the program all about the Boston bombings and the after effect of people who are now considering the new Gang of Eights immigration plan in Congress. They want to put a hold on it. They want to stall it because they think that it's either not good enough or they're just convinced that no immigration plan to allow anybody to come in is going to serve America. It's a matter of fear and scare and paranoia. What's your quick answer on that?
Quick answer to that, that's a delay tactic, and it's a tactic for us to not accomplish comprehensive immigration reform.
Right. What do you? But it seems as though the right wing is exploiting these bombings in order to.
That's exactly what they're doing. This is an exploitation of a travesty that happened in our nation, and they're connecting these two issues where there should be no connection at all.
How can we exploit them back?
How can we exploit them back? We can be smarter than that, and we can say that there is no connection, and we need to get comprehensive immigration reform accomplished now.
Yes.
And you can be smart too to call 602-277-5369 and ask Martin Quesada a question right after this.
Welcome back to Talk Back Live. I'm Santiago, and we're talking to Martin Quesada, a Arizona legislator and lawyer. And I kind of wanted to follow up on a question that we touched on earlier about leadership in the Latino/Chicano community, both nationally and locally. Do you feel that there's anybody ready to step up nationally and or locally? I know you mentioned some local people who have really stepped up. You mentioned some of the nonprofits that have done an excellent job in providing leadership for our community. But how do you feel, and who do you see the next step of leadership needs to take for our community?
You know, Santiago, leadership is an interesting concept. And I think the reason why we haven't been able to find a real strong Latino or Chicano leader in the country is because people are trying to do just that. They're trying to be Latino or Chicano leaders. And instead of taking that approach, they should just try to go out there and do the right thing and fight for their community and fight for those issues. And by default, they will become Latino or Chicano leaders. And I think that's the biggest problem that I've seen, is people trying to be leaders, I want to be that leader, and try to claim that title. It's when those people get in there and they just start fighting for the issues. Those are the ones that are naturally going to be leaders. Those are the ones that we are naturally going to flock to and support.
Well, this is a good opportunity. I mean, after all, the bombings, and now you got all these people, these right-wing people are casting aspersions on people who have dark skin. You know, this is they're taking the opportunity to diss Chicanos, man. And I don't have to be Chicano to feel the diss, okay? Everybody in this room, everybody in the world should understand and feel that the right wing is opportunistic and just dissing people of color. And, you know, I got news for you, in case they don't know, is the majority of Americans have color, have culture, come from someplace else. So I think this is an opportunity. So do you see anybody coming forth and taking the opportunity to be heard and fight for the issues, and naturally then therefore be assigned as leader? I've seen Steve Giardo locally come forward. He came up with SB 1071 to repeal SB 1070. I thought that was a brilliant move. Mm-hmm. I'm expecting a brilliant move out of you, Martin Quesada, Arizona representative.
Well, that's been my focus, Lou, is I'm trying to not try to be the leader, but just try to fight for those issues. And Senator Gallardo is a strong example of one that does that. We've got some nationally as well. We've got a couple of a couple of leaders nationally from Texas, in particular, Joaquin and I can't remember
Joaquin Castro.
Joaquin Castro, and I can't rember his brother's name at the moment. It's another
Julian
Castro.
Right.
Some young, strong leaders who are doing the right thing.
You know, to me, I respect you. I see you are a leader, and this is your opportunity here on this show, right here and now, to denounce Jan Brewer for denying driver's license to deferred action students. To denounce Jan Brewer, even though it happened a couple years ago, for signing SB 1070 in the law and riding on the coattails of something that really just a small minority are getting behind. So this is your opportunity to denounce what has been and suggest a new path, a new courseway.
Well, I've been denouncing those actions ever since I got into office. So absolutely, I do denounce that. It is completely unacceptable that we are taking steps to deny young people who are trying to contribute to our society the opportunity to have a driver's license and get to and from work and get to and from school. That's completely unacceptable, and that absolutely should not happen here in the state of Arizona.
Give me a one-word response to the following. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Shoot.
All right. Jeff Flake.
Disappointment.
Don Shooter.
Embarrassment.
Tom Horn.
Unethical.
All right. Oh, my goodness. And now.
What about John McCain?
John McCain. What do you think of John McCain?
Flip-flopper.
Flip-flopper. All right. 602-277-5369. That is one word after all. Flip, flop, or flip. You know, some people might think, you know, that it's two words. It's got more than one syllable to it. Flip, flop, because flip is a word.
There's a hyphan.
And there's a hyphen in there. Yeah. Flip is a word, and flopper is a word. But no, because John McCain is a flip flopper, he needs a double word, single word description. I'm very, very disappointed. Finally, I'd like to ask you this question, among other questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Besides trying to make a difference in the community, what else do you do?
Well, I practice law. That's what I do as my profession when I'm not at the legislature. And I think in a lot of ways that's also trying to make a difference in my community, but at a different level. At the state, you try to do it for the entire state, for entire communities. But as an attorney, you do that for an individual, one person at a time.
And are you helping out the students who are applying for deferred action?
Absolutely. My doors are open to help those children or help those students submit their applications and to get them the relief they need.
Tell us how people can find you.
They can contact me at my law office. My number is 602-653-0437, and I would love to hear from you and help you out.
And we would love to hear from you right now in the few minutes we have remaining. You can call up and actually ask Martin Quesada a question at 602-277-5369. If you wish.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I think Santiago has a concern or a question, and he'd like to ask you something. Unless I'm wrong. Okay. Then in that case, let me ask you something. Let me ask you something. You know, Martin, I know you're a politician, but you're a person of a great integrity, I've discovered, and someone who thinks things out very well. What do you think of the Gang of Eight's immigration plan?
You know, Lou, I think what we need to focus on right now is that the fact that we actually have a plan on paper, a place to start this discussion, is a huge accomplishment. And that's what I'm happy about, that we actually have a starting point for this discussion and a starting point for this debate. This is not a final plan right now in place. It's a beginning of a discussion. And I'm really thrilled that we actually have a starting point.
Then let's begin discussing it a little bit. I don't like the idea of 13 years.
Oh, yeah, no, 13 years. Well, first of all, the fact that we actually have a pathway to citizenship in the first place, again, huge accomplishment. The fact that it's 13 years, that's a little bit troublesome. Those are some of the things that we need to work out and we need to change a little bit, modify. But the fact that there is a pathway at all, I think it sets the tone of where this thing is going to be headed.
In 1917, Puerto Ricans were given almost an instant pathway. And then they were able to be conscripted in the military. In 1966, the Cubans were considered political refugees. And in a stroke of his pen, President Johnson passed the Cuban Readjustment Act. Why not something for all of the Mexican immigrants? That's my question.
Well, I think one of the reasons is, and it's unfortunate, is that we live in a different political environment right now. There's a political environment where that's just not going to happen. But in addition to that, I think our community, we don't want handouts. We've never asked for handouts coming into this country. We want to earn citizenship. My community wants to earn it, and they're willing to earn it.
Yes.
Martina, a real quick question. Even if it had passed in the Senate, immigration reform, do you believe that there was any form or that it could have passed in the House?
Well, there's no introduction in the House yet, so this still has a long way to go.
And you know what? I want to thank you, Martin Quesada, for being here today on Phoenix Talkback. And that's all the time we've got. In the meantime, again, where can people find you? What's your number down at the legislature?
My number at the legislature is 602-926-5911.
Thank you, Martin Quesada, for being on today's show.
Thank you, Lou. Thank you, Santiago.
Thank you, Martin.